an interesting idea, like this idea of you owning a slice of land and it being used by the community sort of thing, and then ruffling the feathers of them by being like, hold on a sec, like this is mine. Like
going once, going twice, sold. You're listening to the Property Pod.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Property Pod, your weekly engagement into real estate here in the Hobart Marketplace. I am your host, Aaron Horn, and after many technical issues, I've resolved it this morning. I'm going back into the realm of trying to get AI to edit this for me, but I've got the boys at the desk that have been very patient with me trying to set everything up. So thank you, boys. Welcome to the studio, Johnny Mack and Patrick Berry.
It's all good. We had nothing more to do with our 45 minutes of waiting.
Well, you are doing something while you're waiting.
You're waiting.
In this moment, the show could end at any stage because you're waiting on something and people won't be able to see, but you're watching another screen that's telling you
when my NBN's arriving at my house.
So I loved this. Pat showed up to work this morning.
And I think it's actually more interesting than sitting here.
Pat's showed up and he's got one of the security cameras from work. He says, I've got the best plan ever. The NBN said, I've got to be here between 8 and 12. I've got to be at the premises. I'm ready to rock and roll. So he's got the security camera. He set it up. He said, nothing stopping the podcast this morning. I said,
apart from Aaron.
Except for probably me. So, look, there's been some technical issues. I'm hoping to resolve them in the future. And as Pat said earlier, I was doing some silly boy business yesterday with some of the Stable Diffusion and other AI stuff. So I would stop playing with the toys that I've got in the AI space and start doing some real work.
But you can't learn the new toys unless you play with them. So I guess we'll give you a leave pass.
I love this theory because, yes, you've got to play with them to find out a bit more. Today, I wanted to jump into something that is kind of a new technology that is kind of a TikTok viral story. And the amazing thing is it's come in from our superstar correspondent from Bendigo.
Paige
from Bendigo, baby. I was talking to Paige from Bendigo, who, if you haven't heard, was on our Christmas episode earlier. No, it wasn't earlier this year. It was at the end of last year.
Paige could be if you listened in the new year.
Yeah, very true. But Paige came in and spoke with us. She's a long-time listener, first-time caller, as you'll soon find out. She's actually gone to the effort to record us 6 minutes worth of in-depth discussion. It's almost like you're cutting away, like 60 Minutes or a current affair. Oh. You cut away to the correspondent. We got one.
That's awesome.
We've got one. Paige is our Bendigo correspondent.
I can't wait to see how you edit this with the audio. Are we going to cut to like Rolling Meadows or?
You just wait, baby. You just wait. My Star Wars edit the other day where we were talking about the Star Wars house, just put some in pictures behind it. Gone viral on TikTok, baby. The amount of people that want to buy Star Cruiser's office is next level.
I have seen a noticeable, increased inquiry on that too.
Yeah. So, Star Cruiser's, baby. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut to our beautiful correspondent and we will, what we've got is a story that's gone wild on TikTok. We've kind of looked into it a little bit ourselves, but we'd like to kind of talk to what's happened here. So without any further ado, we cut away to Paige from Bendigo.
Hi, boys. This is Paige from Bendigo, long-time listener, first-time caller. I've always wanted to say that. I'm coming to you with a TikTok scenario this week. The handle is at Wicked Witch of the West, Taralyn Romero. She's in her early 40s, and she lives in Denver, Colorado. So I had to look this one up because I didn't actually know where Colorado was on the map in America. So for those of us who aren't great with geography like me, it's actually pretty much dead bang in the middle of America. So the scenario, I've been following this for a couple of years now on TikTok, and I don't want any comments about what I do with my spare time. But Taralyn in 2021 wanted to move out of the city, Denver, which has a population of around 700,000 people, and found a property about half an hour out called Kitridge, which lies in the Jefferson County. So the population of Kitridge is around a little under 1,000 people, actually. It's decreased over the last 10 years, and I guess when I explain this scenario to you a little bit further, you'll probably understand why. So Taralyn found a house for sale back in the winter in 2021. It backed onto a park and onto a creek called Bear Creek. From the photos and videos that she's posted, it was super idyllic. It was snowing. The creek looked like, the most special piece of bliss. And honestly, I can get it. I understand why she bought the property. But fast forward 4 months and summer comes around, and it turns out Taralyn, the lucky duck, has up to 50 of the public at any one time using her property as a local swimming hole. So, kids swinging off branches, families on banks of the creek digging, people splashing around. And Taralyn didn't actually know, but the public apparently has used her land to access and swim at the creek for the last 35 years. Plot twist. So Taralyn wasn't so stoked about this, as you can imagine. She reportedly wanted to find a solution with the public, but also consider things like their personal liability, considering it was private land. So they tried to kind of come to a compromise. They set up chairs for the public to use around, the swimming spot. They had a chat with the locals about their rubbish and the things that they were leaving behind and the damage that they were doing by pulling up, small shrubs and digging up banks, except this wasn't really successful. So Taralyn ended up putting signs to stop the public from using her land, and Jefferson County was pretty upset by this and sought the removal of these signs and wanted access to the creek reopened. So Taralyn paid $10,000 to get her land surveyed, and it came back and said that she did own the land, go figure. However, Jefferson County disagreed and stated that over the years the creek had moved, and therefore the county actually owned the creek and the access to the creek. So bear in mind, if you think in like quarters, Taralyn owned a quarter of the creek that backed onto her property connected to the park, and the county owned the other 3/4. So Taralyn made the point that the public could use the other 3/4 that the county owned and also had access to. However, that wasn't the coveted beach space that Taralyn in the survey was proved to own. I hope you're keeping up here. The county decided then to sue Taralyn for her land. An interim order was made for the public to use Taralyn's land again and swim there, and the signs needed to be removed. So you can imagine in a small town of 1,000 people how awful this scenario would be with all the Karens, the social media posts. That Taralyn had random people standing on her land and recording her inside her property, parents encouraging their kids to yell out to Taralyn things like, "This is our land," and so forth. So this has been going on for 2 years now. Alrighty, so let's fast forward to the outcome, and I'm sure many, many tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees to fight the county, right? A settlement was announced last week on the 3rd of May, which is super exciting. So Taralyn chose to settle for $250,000, and the county now owns a slither of the land that was hers that the public have historically used as the beach. There'll also be permanent fencing around her property that will be put in by the county. There'll also be an establishment of an alternative loop trail that doesn't cut into her property and actually uses the county-owned land. Obviously, an updated survey will also be completed due to the exchange of land, and Taralyn will still have her own access to the creek that backs onto her property, which will now be private. So a really great outcome. So I guess why I found this case, and a lot of people on TikTok found this case really interesting, is I understand that there's the expectation that you'll do your own research on what you're buying or a property that you're purchasing. But how do you search for, is my property used by the public as a beach in the summer? So I wouldn't be surprised going forward now if Taralyn pursues the previous owners who did not disclose this in the sale of the property and actively avoided ticking certain boxes in sale documentation, supposedly, to deliberately mislead Taralyn. The whole case is massive and has really reinforced that counties can't just go ahead and claim or take land, but also the importance of disclosure of information during the sale process. I think a lot of legal documentation and clauses within sale documentation will be updated over in America as a result of this case. But also, I guess wrapping up, I'm all for a fierce woman who fights for what she believes in. So massive congratulations to her. It's been a couple of years coming, and I can only imagine the amount of stress that she went through. But from a real estate perspective, I'm super keen to hear your thoughts on this one, boys. Alrighty, that's all from me. I'll be signing off as your friendly neighbourhood TikTok correspondent. I'll talk to you soon.
Booyah. So that is our fierce woman correspondent from Bendigo, laying down the law on something she's heard on TikTok. And yeah, quite interesting the way that it's kind of all come about and all gone down. Could I get you guys to kind of give me your thoughts on that and what you'd do if the situation was to arise here?
Well, I think my first concern is she's come to us for it. Like, how many episodes have you listened to, Paige? Yeah. You should know by now. We're not the best people to ask.
Well, we won't be quoting law.
But I guess it's an interesting idea, like this idea of you owning a slice of land and it being used by the community sort of thing, and then ruffling the feathers of them by being like, hold on a sec, like this is mine. Like,
it actually reminds me of a similar scenario that Sebastian, our photographer, was telling me about recently. So we went out to take photos of a block of land out the back of New Norfolk, and Mulgara we were heading out to. And Bassie's like, oh, this is where we go swimming in summer. And it described a very similar thing, that they were jumping off the rock into this water hole that you can see from the road. But one of the owners came out and told them off.
Okay, yeah.
Nearly exact same scenario. But what in that scenario, the owner was on the other side of the little rivulet or the little pool telling them off, but where they were jumping from, you could access from the road. So it was all fenced off, and they were sort of walking down the creek side of the fence, which was off someone's private property, and then jumping into the river off the rock from there. Now, whether or not they're allowed to or not, I'm not sure, but pretty much a very similar scenario.
Looking into this, like the interesting part was in the town or in the county, there was actually access to the creek that just didn't pass through her land, but it was just that was the most convenient route. Mm-hmm. That was the way that you got to this, what they called the beach.
Always known. Get there. Yeah.
I guess my first thought is, why didn't the council just put an artificial beach in around the rest of the bloody thing and then, make beach all the way around?
It's really the other side of it that kind of blows me out is that it's not like the case built up over time where, the first summer was like, okay, I'll kind of accommodate for this and, there'll be some chairs put out and, if you use the place properly, it'll all be fine.
Yeah.
But then it kind of turned into, I think the council put portaloos in. Then it turned into like, the portaloos no one's emptying them, so I'm just going to defecate in the creek, or I'm not going to treat the land respectfully and treat the owner. And it kind of turned into which, she's been labelled the Wicked Witch of the West in this story, which is, quite brutal as well. And really, she's just kind of, this is my land. Is there anything like that happens here in Tassie? Like, I guess recently was there that the highway or the Southern Outlet? I think when I looked it up, is it eminent domain or something like that? Is that a word that means anything to you two?
So you can acquire, like council can acquire land for, or government can acquire land for greater use.
Yes.
A good example of that is the Brighton High School they're currently constructing. So the owner wanted more money. They got a valuation done and they acquired the land under that for the greater good of the community. So yes, you can take land that belongs to somebody else, but I don't think it's as easy as...
No, and I think it's a case where this Taralyn is actually standing up and for her rights and being like, this is... Because, again, like if anyone out there heard Paige's story and wants to look into it further, check out the Wicked Witch of the West through the TikTok, but there's podcasts and stuff that she's got to... But, like, the further you go into it, she's being, like, vilified and attacked online by...
Full-on mobbed.
Full-on, mob mentality, just being like, hey, this lady's moved into our area and she's taking our beach from us.
Yeah.
It's giving me South Park vibes. Like, how have they not made an episode about
Colorado?
this?
Probably, look, next week it'll probably be on South Park.
I can just picture Eric Cartman just like yelling at her.
I want to use the beach.
The one that got me.
Like, I just can't remember. That's what I'm seeing.
I can see that.
Well, actually, the only person that ever's going to really care is the one that gets sued, is the potential to get sued.
Yeah.
And so if none of the people mind because they're not getting injured yet, and the council doesn't mind too much yet because no one's complaining and they're on her land anyway. But the second that someone does actually seriously injure themselves and look at someone to sue, well, she's the one that's effectively, they would turn around and say, well, you're granting access to all these people without any signs or anything, so you're
liable. Yeah,
definitely.
Oh,
and look, in America,
literally.
they sue over a shoelace being undone.
So I think since then, so basically it kind of all wrapped up and she settled for the $250K for this little slice of the land so that people could access through the area, which I think she joked about saying like she got like beach value prices for them getting the beach back. So she's pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
But then she said, don't worry, guys, there's still season 2 coming. So the next side of it was the people that sold in the winter, like deliberately
avoiding.
Well, yeah. So the claim is that they deliberately sold in the winter to avoid anybody knowing. So it's that idea of then disclosure of information. So I just wanted to cover that before we finish up. When you guys are selling a property, I think there's an area where it says, do you know what's on the contract that's...
Yeah, so we have to, obviously, if we're told something about a property, we need to disclose it.
Yep.
And there is obviously onus on an owner to let us know about any issues they're aware of.
Of course.
It gets difficult because if someone chooses not to tell us and we're not aware of it, then, you know.
Well, yeah, look, you can only know what you can know. But yes, I think what the plan, or I think Taralyn's plan, is to perhaps sue the owners for damages over kind of the misleading of information, to be like, yeah, no, it's a beautiful, idyllic little place and nobody comes around here.
Well, that would be interesting if they said this is your private exclusive creek that no one touches, which was obviously absolute bullshit.
Well, so yeah, just before you go from there, who was the lady from real estate who came in and spoke with us?
Oh, well, title insurance.
No. The lady.
The American lady.
Tara,
yeah.
Yeah, Tara. Yes.
Tara.
I knew it was one. Yeah. So I remember her talking about the disclosure, like the information, the wording had to be so clear. It'd be so interesting to dive into the wording
of this
particular
case.
Yeah.
So, because maybe she might have read into a lifestyle that was not sold.
Yeah.
Or were they selling her a lifestyle that wasn't quite what was being sold, you know?
Yeah, so. It's so hard to know, but I do believe like the case continues. And then just further on from the Bear Creek land dispute, I believe that Taralyn, kind of using this TikTok platform and other platforms, she's creating her own podcast called Dirt Wars, which should be coming out soon. So if you're interested in the story like Paige was, and like the thousands of millions of people that have been watching on TikTok, Dirt Wars is coming soon. So that's another place where I think Taralyn will kind of take it on as her charge to follow up on other stories like this and look into kind of how it's happening.
How is she actually seen, I guess, in the community these days is what I'm curious by. Now that it's all settled and everyone's got their beach back, is she still the Wicked Witch?
Yeah,
Can she walk down to the corner store of 1,000 people and, not be...
Yeah, not feel vilified. I don't know. Actually, the last kind of video I saw was them at a town hall meeting, and imagine, like 1,000 people versus one kind of this.
It'd be scary.
Yeah, scary and people kind of.
But then it's also unfair to think that no one could understand why she was frustrated either.
I guess it's that idea of that mob mentality, like John kind of mentioned, is like once a small idea is put in place, no, it's our right. Like I think they were trying to claim squatters' rights as well on kind of like we've been doing this for 35 years. This one person comes in and spoils our fun. So, it's really interesting. It's really cool. When Paige brought it to me, I'm like, she's like, you should talk about this. I'm like, well, no one's more educated to talk about it than you. You've been following the story for months. So if you pop something together, we'd love to talk to it. So
it's so hard to try and get an idea of how that sort of relays to our marketplace. Like it's very hard. Like you look at titles here in Tasmania, and I think it's to the high water line from memory. Is it, John, that you own if it's a waterfront property?
Oh, it depends on, excuse me. I think it depends on where, which section, but that sounds about right. But normally it's quite clearly defined.
And in this case, it's the creek has moved over time, so that's changed the boundary of things.
So the creek has moved into her property. Is that what?
I believe so, and then moved in towards making the beach area larger into her area, which makes it the more appealing, attractive option to be. So it's again, this kind of the she's had it resurveyed and stuff, as Paige just said, but
Well,
it's really cool.
When I watched one of the TikToks of it, it had these little kids with like sticks, just thrusting it up like it was
Like a Tuscan warrior.
Yeah, he's going, it's Ireland. He must have been like 7. So obviously, it's the kids are getting a message from like their parents, and in many ways, probably the young kids. They're young, they don't know. They're probably the worst offenders of hassling the poor woman to some degree.
Yeah.
Because,
well, kids love swimming.
Hells yeah, especially in a hot Colorado summer. Look, no, really appreciate Paige chucking it together. If anyone else out there is listening has come across anything else like this or you'd like us to talk about anything, we're always open to.
As we've clearly showed today, we know nothing. So it's lucky Paige was able to comment for us.
With the disclosure part, really, I think you said it. If we're never told, and we're not living there 24/7, you sometimes you don't know. And I guess that's where trying to ask those questions about what other, if you can get more information about what are the neighbours like, what's it like at different times, you're asking a little bit more lifestyle orientated questions. That's probably the only real means of trying to be able to understand if you're trying to buy a lifestyle choice change.
It is hard though. People ask me all the time, what are the neighbours like? I'm like, most of the time it's like it is today, like it's dead quiet.
Yeah.
But I'm also only here through certain times of the day when people are at work. I don't know what it's like on a Friday night at 9 p.m. at night.
It was that bad joke to say, like, everyone was fine until you moved into the neighbourhood.
Or, next door might be dead quiet, but it's because it's an Airbnb that we don't know.
Yeah.
And it's the owner hasn't said, I'm actually selling because next door is a pain in the ass because when people move in for their holidays, they keep me awake. But the owner's not going to go tell me that.
Yeah.
So it is a hard one. And I don't think there is any right or wrong way to go around it. So
it will be interesting to keep following this and kind of finding out, the season 2 of whether there is kind of legal ramifications for when it was sold and the disclosure of the information.
I'd like to see it all end up in like a really nice holiday barbecue scene where everyone just celebrates the creek and she's forgiven, and they're forgiven as well.
What a wholesome John McGregor view on life.
It's just a nice Christmas finish movie. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff.
They all hug and fade to black.
Yeah.
Just a Hallmark movie.
Yeah. And then the kids are still doing Our Land, but now it has different meaning.
I love that. All right, guys. Well, as we said, if you've got anything you want us to wax lyrical about and pretty much not give any advice on,
we'd love
to do so.
We are your number one.
We are your number one, the Property Pod. Reach out via all our channels or email or actually, I got an email about a guest just before. I'll talk to you about it later. Beautiful. This is the Property Pod. Thank you so much for working through my technical issues. And we'll be back next week with more pod.
Thank you, Paige.
Thank you, Paige.
Thank you, Paige. Bye. You have been listening to the Property Pod, recorded and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Property Code.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek then use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information without first seeking qualified and professional advice.